You're not tired because you're weak, and you're not sick because you're doing anything wrong. You just have energy leaks. Today, I'm going to show you the 9 major reasons why your energy might be leaking and simple, easy steps to resolve it immediately. I'm Dana Wilder, Energy Over Matter, author, educator, and energy healer. And today in this video, we're going to cover the 9 major reasons why your energy might be leaking and how that can cause your overwhelm, fatigue, illness, burnout, disconnection. So before we start, I need to just back up a little and explain what energy body is. What is the biofield? Because this is going to set the stage for ways in which we can leak the energy unbeknownst to ourselves. So a biofield is the energetic blueprint of your body. It is extending from inside and to the space around you. It is the frequency, the vibration, the blueprint, the architect, the hologram of your body. In Chinese medicine, they call this the qi. In yoga, we call it prana. Western medicine, I think the closest parallel we would have is our nervous system. But it is the thing that animates us, the energy, the field that moves around us. And without this information field and the energy being directed by it, the biochemistry of the body doesn't work well either. So today, as we uncover these 9 energy leaks, I'll break them down into sections. So the first section we're going to start with is looking at energy leaks that still come in what we would think of more so as our physical body. So these can be toxicity. So when we take on heavy metals, virus, parasites, any of these external things that come into our body that affect our immune system, that cause overwhelm of our system. Perhaps our drainages isn't right, so we're not eliminating, we're maybe not metabolizing correctly. And this can be because all of these toxic things that have come into our body are burdening the energy, they're draining our energy. So when our body is constantly scanning the environment for what are these invaders in our body? Why are they here? How are we going to get rid of them? That hypervigilance and that task is going to drain the rest of the energy out of your body because your body is going to spend all of its energy on these external tasks. So the more refined parts that we want to live in, which we normally think of as the rest and digest, is where we're going to rebuild cellular systems in the body that have been damaged. This is where we build our immune system. This is where we properly digest our food. This is where we return back to homeostasis and balance. And if your energy system is constantly on vigilance and being tasked with the burden of overcoming all of these external pathogens in the body, it is no wonder then why you have low energy. So here, even though we're thinking in the physical body, we're still thinking of energy expenditure. And so what can we do here? So this is a place where maybe we want to consider cleaning up our diet, cleaning up our environment. So I know that there's some things that are hard to monitor more so. I mean, we can't always control the air quality outside, although home filtration systems might be available. Same thing, we might not be able to afford expensive filtration water systems, but we can definitely avoid the worst offenders. We don't want to drink out of plastic bottles. And we can also think about just with our diet. Maybe we all can't afford the organic foods that have less of this genetically modified food in them, less glyphosate or other chemicals, but we still can't avoid highly processed food. We can still avoid eating packaged food, chocolate bars, fast food, the things that we know definitely the energy that we gain from that food is less than the energy it expends just to process it in the body. So these are all ways in which we can just at a very physical level start to try to get rid of all of the burden in the body so that there's energy left for other processes. And while we're still thinking about just dealing with the physical body, we start to see it more still energetically, and we think about just the stagnation of the energy flow within our body. And for anybody that is familiar with acupuncture or the meridian system, this is what in Chinese medicine they're always trying to do to open up the flow in the body of stagnation. And so in yoga, we think about this as the nadis or prana, but essentially it's the same thing. It's that your whole body is got this electrical system that runs through it, and we want it to be open. We want it to be in flow. Whenever we have pain, that's generally because we have a stagnation or stuck energy. And as the energy pools and accumulates in one area, then pain signals start to arise. It's also going to be poor expenditure of energy because everything that's downstream of that is not getting the proper energy flow. In areas where we might have weakness, numbness, or we have lack of energy or feeling, this could be a place where we have blocked energy. And so the goal always here at this layer is to open our flow. So there are so many ways in which we can open flow in the body, and depending on what system we're trying to open, and we should be generally working on all of these. But fascia is a beautiful place to start. So the fascia is the connective layer of tissue that sort of encapsulates all of the cells, the organelles, the organs, and the body in general. It's what holds the skeleton together and the organs in place. And sometimes the fascia over lifetime of injuries, poor posture, poor breathing, poor mechanical movement, overuse, injury can come in many ways. We start to have adhesions in the fascia. And the fascia is even a quicker communication system even than nerves. Because unlike a nerve or even a biochemistry reaction like transmitters in the brain or our hormones, they require like a release. And it's like as one releases, it goes to the next receptor, the next nerve, and so on in a chain. Fascia, though, because it's all connected, it's the idea of like pulling on a sheet of paper. If you pull on one side, the whole sheet moves. Just like when we think about quantum mechanics, it is this idea of a unified field. So information travels very quickly through our body on the fascia, which is why when you do fascia release, sometimes as you're working on one place, maybe in the neck, all of a sudden something in the hip moves or in the foot because it's all connected, regardless of how distal it is from the origin or the pain point in the body. So fascia release, it's a beautiful practice. This is something that can be done through practices like yoga, where we hold postures for longer to really allow time for the connective tissue to relax and to open and to have flow restored to it. Qigong, also beautiful. Tai Chi, these are all energy movement where we're pairing our breath with our mental intention, where it's a form of like moving meditation. So we're pairing all of these things as we open flow. And in Qigong, as we're moving and we're tracing patterns on us, we are opening all of these flows. Acupuncture, acupressure, reflexology, even massage, chiropractic work. All of these are all ways in which we open the flow in the body, just in different tissues. And I would suggest that you need to find which spot where you might have the tension stored. For some of us, it might be chiropractic adjustment. But some of us, if the fascia is out of alignment, even when we adjust the skeleton, the fascia is going to pull us back out of balance. So we want to get all of it. And then we also just want to move our blood. In Chinese medicine, they really think about the blood as like needing to really flow. And this is giving you your wu qi or like the defensive energy. So you want to move the blood. And this is going to be through movement and through, walking or exercise or something that's going to get your heart beating. And then we need to move our lymph. So maybe here we want to do things like bouncing, rebounding. We want to do shaking, anything that's going to help the lymph in the body to move so that it can take out when we just talked about stagnation of actual toxins in the body. Well, all of those toxins, after they filter through the blood, through kidneys, and through liver, they store also then in the lymph, and the lymph now has to flush those toxins also out of the body. So we need to always be moving, and everything that we need to do, we have to keep in mind that we want to open up the flow of this energy, because when we have stuck muscles and fascia adhesions, these are going to be energy blocks, and that is going to be a leak. That is going to keep energy stuck in one area and stop it and prevent it from moving somewhere else. And that is going to leak our overall energy. And next, after we've kind of thought about things just more in a physical nature, even though with an energetic paradigm still in mind, we move then into the mental space. And in the mental space, I'm going to break it down into a few different things listed here. So the first one we're going to think about is overstimulation. So overstimulation here is going to be all the things that we're bringing in that are constantly distracting us and taking our attention away, again, from flow and from healing. So think about how much news are you consuming in a day? How much negative movies or violence are you looking at on TV? How many arguments are you getting into? How much time do you spend complaining at work about your boss to your coworkers? Do you come home and then instantly start nagging on your children? Do you go to bed still thinking overstimulation? Maybe you're looking at social media now, looking at the blue screens as you go to bed. This constant overstimulation is not how our bodies in evolution were meant to survive. We were meant to be in prolonged periods of rest, of boredom, of mindfulness, of tediousness, of just regular tasks. We weren't meant to constantly be overstimulated. And so, a practice here I love, one of my favorite yoga words, pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal. And this is one of the steps towards getting into deeper meditation is, can we turn off some of this overload? Because when we are constantly stimulated, it's causing our brains to have to pay attention to so many things. And often these things are things that we're not going to take action on. They're outside of our control. All they are is another way to stress our nervous system and to overuse our mind, but they don't really bring us to a place that's going to make us happier, more adjusted. I mean, certainly, if we only are working on a smaller sphere of influence, which was our own body, our own mind, our own family, our own community, we can definitely exert change here where this energy expenditure of being stimulated by these problems might result in something beneficial back to our nervous system and our lives. But when we worry about things that are so outside of our control, this is a constant leak of mental effort and focus that we really don't get very much in return for it. So this is definitely in the world we live in now with constant Wi-Fi signals and blue lights and fluorescent lighting and LEDs and all of these dissonant frequencies that are entering into our environment. So not even just through our mind, but just generally in our environmental field, we have so many things bombarding us, and this lack of coherence, this overstimulation, is a massive energy leak. And so for anybody that's sick, I would say this is a really wonderful place to jump in and start unplugging a little bit. Maybe putting limits on how much time you spend in front of devices, maybe spending more time in nature, where the sounds that you're hearing now, instead of traffic and violence and arguing, and it's going to be birds chirping and the sound of leaves rustling or water trickling in a nearby brook. All of those sounds are the ones that our body is meant to coexist with. Those are things that bring internal balance and coherence back into the body. So major energy leaks, so overstimulation. And then I think that leads us into another energy leak, which is rumination. And for anyone not familiar with that term, ruminating is when we have like this thought loop that plays continuously. And then this is the thing that's going to take us out of now. So this is when we go back to the past and we worry about things that we've done, or we go into the future and we're fearful about what might happen next. And even when we are not doing it with a negative emotion, even if we're always planning for something next, and even if we're always thinking about, I mean, I always give this one example. Think about what to cook for dinner tonight. If we just thought about what's for dinner tonight and we just ended with, I'm going to make roast beef, and that was it. Okay, that's not very much of an energy expenditure to think about that. But if we think, well, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? We think, oh, I didn't take anything to defrost. Oh, you know what? I actually need to stop at the store. Oh, well, what recipe should I cook? Actually, you know what? That one person didn't like that last time. Oh, why am I always the one cooking? Why don't they ever do it? Why do I have to do the dishes? Who left the dishes in the sink last time? Why am I even have to cook again if I? And then a thousand thoughts later, you still haven't cooked dinner, nothing has still changed, but how much energy have you wasted in this rumination and that takes you out of right now? And the truth is that right now, probably things are okay. And probably whatever you were going to cook for dinner will still be what you were going to cook. And even if you changed your mind because you forgot to defrost something, you will probably just in the moment make do with whatever was available to cook, and the problem would have just solved itself. It probably didn't need you to come back how many times in a day to go back over that script and worry in your head again and again. And that's just one simple thing about dinner. Imagine when we start to think now about that fight we had with our partner last night, that we went to bed thinking about, we woke up in the morning, we revisited thinking, I should have said that. Why didn't I say this? I wish they had done this. Like, and that could be a fight that didn't even just happen last night. It could be last week, last year. We could be fighting over something we fought about with somebody in our childhood, and we still keep bringing it up all the time because we haven't let go of the thought loop. That is a massive energy leak and expenditure that we're constantly putting out there. And so, this is something, again, we're going to try to do some meditation to reframe, to become self aware. Because in the moment when you catch yourself having this, it is not then to place judgment on yourself because that's another negative thought loop. This is just to notice how much time in a day you spend having the same thoughts over and over. Which ones are valuable, which ones were necessary, which ones are true, and then just coming back sometimes to just stillness. Because even in those menial tasks like cooking dinner, it can be moments of meditation and stillness. Because if in those moments we stay very present in the moment of cooking, we might actually really enjoy the meal we're making. And we might actually be in such a restful state that we digest that meal better. We enjoyed the whole process, as opposed to the whole time we're doing it. If we're thinking about these things that are not in the moment, we might not have enjoyed or been present for any of that. We might be so stressed out and so triggered that even while we're eating the meal, we're not really digesting the emotions, the thoughts, or the food because they're all related. So again, massive energy leak if we're constantly ruminating and taking ourselves out of now. And this will bring us into the ones we're not always so aware of. So what about our subconscious? So our subconscious, a lot of it comes from when we're children and we're at a young age where we're not really understanding that we're even making these beliefs because we're very hypnotized then, very self-hypnotized, and also just by our society, our parents, our culture, our communities. It's how we learn so many programs to run. And this in when you look at it at the surface level, it seems like it is energy efficient. This is how come we go into self-hypnosis and we create these programs that run automatically throughout the day. Because if every time we got in the car, we had to think about how to start it, how to back up, how to drive, that would take a lot of energy. So actually, in some sense, these auto programs are designed to keep energy by not having to rethink about everything all the time. But we want to keep the positive ones, but we want to go back and revisit the ones that are not working so great for us. So what are the subconscious patterns that we go on autopilot, which are draining our energy? So I'm going to go back to something as simple as unloading the dishwasher again, because I think that the easiest examples to give are not big dramatic ones because they don't happen as often as the daily grind does. But the other day going into the kitchen and I'm thinking, well, I'm not supposed to be the one that unloads the dishwasher because in our family we make a rule where whoever one person cooks and then somebody else does cleans up the kitchen. And so I'm like, well, I'm the one that cooked, so I don't know why I'm doing this again. And I could be mad and I could leave it and I could wait until my kids come home from school. But then I have to look at the mess all day and I have to be upset because every time I'm going to come in the room, I'm going to go in rumination and worry about it. Or I could just clean it right now, but then I could be very angry that I'm unloading the dishwasher. And then I'm angry while I'm doing it, which is an energy leak because negative emotions tend to drain our energy. And then later, I'm going to complain when the kids come home. And so again, I'm going to be draining energy. And then I'm going to remind them next time again because we'll bring it up again next time they don't do something like you never unload when it's your turn and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to nag about it. And it's going to make them drain. It's going to make me drain. But the truth was that the content of what happened hasn't changed. The dishwasher still needed to be unloaded, and either I make the decision to leave it and be okay with the mess, or I make the decision that I'm going to unload it myself and then just that's it. We don't need to revisit. We don't need to come back a million times. And this is going to lead, I think, nicely into the next one, which is now when we're just going from the subconscious programming and patterns that are there, also to how they turn into actions. And I'm going to simultaneously talk about both of these because they're so linked. So the subconscious being one energy leak, but then the actionable steps we take as a result of that programming. So in that scenario I just gave you, what is the actionable step? You have choice. Either we do this choice or we do this choice. And that is going to be based on the subconscious patterns and the emotions that we tie to it. So in this case, I am going to choose, I'm just going to unload the dishwasher myself, but I'm going to do it happily because then I'm going to think to myself, isn't it wonderful that I live in a house where I have a dishwasher? Because when I was a kid, I didn't, and I would have had to hand wash the dishes. Isn't it wonderful that I got to cook this healthy meal for my children because I could afford to buy this pasture raised meat and this organics? Wasn't it wonderful that next time they're going to unload the dishwasher? Wasn't it wonderful that I had a beautiful family to sit down and eat dinner with? And all of a sudden, that one task, the content still stayed the same, but the context in which I gave it made the action very different because I did it now with joy and with love instead of doing it angrily. And that makes a big difference. And so, what we're trying to do with our subconscious is figure out what patterns and what thought loops and what limiting beliefs do I maybe have behind there. And what is the limiting belief that I'm that nobody supports me? And is that really true? And it might be true in this one scenario that somebody forgot to unload the dishwasher, but is it overall generally true, the pattern of my life that I'm not supported? So is it beneficial for me whenever I look at this one task to believe this thing automatically and say, this is just another example of how nobody supports me? And then I carry that energy leak with me into everything else I do because this is just one more way in which it proved it. Or is it possible to start looking at what are those energetic patterns that follow me? Maybe it is I'm not worthy. Maybe it is I'm not lovable. Maybe it is whatever it is for you that you have that you've carried with you that don't really serve you anymore. Start noticing where those energy patterns come up and when they start to drain you, and then maybe try to reframe it. And sometimes we reframe it because we can give different context to a scenario. And in that context, we can now see the positive in all of these interactions. But sometimes it's actually telling you when you have these patterns keep coming up again and again, and a negative emotion that's resulting. Sometimes that's telling you to take an action step different in your life. And perhaps if you really are being, mistreated or taken advantage of or abused, you should avoid that. You should move away from it, but you need to start to decide if that is an actual reality in which that you need to take an action, or whether this is an internal landscape in which you're bringing your own limiting beliefs into, and something that you can modify to seal up your energy leaks. So whether it's something internally that needs to change or an external situation that you need to change. And this really brings us in also to like with these actions that we're taking in the world, and they usually are based on those limiting beliefs. But some of us might express this in actions that show we isolate ourselves. So if we're feeling lonely very often and we don't have a lot of support and a lot of things around us, is it because it used to be true that somebody abandoned us or we were alone? So we continue to always think that that's going to be what will happen in the future. And so in that case, we mistrust people. We look for ways in which somebody let us down, even if that person might have actually supported us many other times. And so we self isolate. Or is it we become people pleasers? Maybe that's the action you're taking in the world, that you're managing all the chaos around you and thinking, as long as I do all of these things, that I'm enough then and people will love me. Well, that's a lot of energy to be vigilant again about everybody else's needs all the time, especially if it comes at the drainage of your own energy, because you're not thinking now about your needs and what you want and what speaks to your fills your energy and your cup. You're always worried about putting your energy out to please everybody else around you. So we can be thinking about this as like boundaries, maybe just in general too, because having weak boundaries is definitely something that is going to cause an energy leak. And I would put this again as kind of like skirting on the two. It's a subconscious pattern, but it also turns into real actions in our life. Because what happens generally is our limiting beliefs are running around in the background. And that creates our experience of the world and what we notice. And as we notice and we bring these energetic things into our being, we think thoughts about them. The thoughts have an emotion attached. And once we feel that emotion, it cascades into energy in the body. And then now we have the chemistry of a fight or flight, and our nervous system is now being drained. And like we talked about from the beginning, when we have physical drains, because we have all that chemistry in the body, an overload, whether it's through toxins or through mental activity or emotional unprocessed feelings, the result is still the same. It's just this constant leak of energy out into the environment. And that's not going back into filling our own cup, to healing our bodies, to restoring balance, building immune system, digestion. And certainly we're going to get to into the more, soul aligned, I would call it, parts now. And this is really about where our happiness really resides, because being happy is not something evolutionarily that is required. So it's not if you have limited energy in the body, your brain is not going to prioritize happiness over all of the other survival needs. So you're not going to find the happiness moments in your life because it's not a priority. But this is a secular experience because happiness actually brings you energy. So think about all the times that you did a task or somebody calls or something happens that makes you upset. You instantly feel tired. After you cry, you want to lay down. But in that same token, when your best friend that you haven't talked to in a long time calls, you light up. Or you could be out late at night and you're tired and you want to go home, but then your favorite song comes on and you're dancing with your girlfriends, and all of a sudden all your energy is back, because happiness actually is a way to recharge your battery, but not being happy and not being aligned is a way to wash it away. So misalignment really starts to come now when we are not following and we're not taking those actions based on what we really want. So if we are misaligned with our ethics, with our morals, with our values, and we make commitments and we do things that aren't really what we want. So we're saying yes when we mean no. We work in jobs that we don't really like. We stay in relationships that don't make us happy. We don't work out when we know that we wanted to. And a lot of these things, again, they're hard to separate into different categories because just like we are holistic beings, these things all do relate to each other. But this goes back to your subconscious patterns. If your subconscious and your conscious mind are speaking two different needs, two different parts, and they're not congruent or consistent with each other, this is where self-sabotage and failure will come through. So you might say something like, I want to do a job that is helping people because my calling really is helping. But then that part of you and your soul is saying, I want all of these things. This is where my value, my meaning comes. But you are misaligned because another part of you hears what your family and culture said to you, which is, but you need a job that has benefits. You need a job that has a consistent paycheck. Your family needs you to do this, 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 and this. And all of a sudden, every action you're taking is about in service to something that doesn't really align with you. And so this is why sometimes I think that if you really want to see the fruits of your labor, like look around at your life and see, are you living a life that is the one you actually want? Or is it this is just the product of the thinking in your mind that actually doesn't support the emotions and the beliefs and the actions that will create the things that you actually do want. And this is where we need to come back in and start feeling some of these energy leaks, because when we get to the end and we get the physical body, the energy, the mental, our wisdom, and eventually our bliss body, when they align, that is like it lights you right up and your light body will shine. And this is when you can find bliss and joy. And that becomes a way to actually maintain and energize the body. And so I find that we most often, and this brings us to our last and final one, which this one I'm going to call internal resistance. An internal resistance is when we are resisting at some point of the things I just said. So we are finding that we are unable to live with what is, and we're always living in what if. Right? Well, what if I did this? Well, what if I had done that? Well, what if I changed jobs? Well, what if I do this? What if I eat that? Well, what about this? We're not just living with what is. We're not just living in harmony with the reality and being okay with it. Because as much as I'm saying that there's all these leaks here, there's a certain level of surrender and acceptance you need to meet yourself where you're at now. And perhaps you don't have all of these energy leaks sealed up. And maybe it's not so easy because maybe you're saying, well, I do want that other job, but I need to still pay my bills right now. And that's a hard fact, and that is a reality. So we are going to live in what is. We're not going to internally resist that. But what we're going to start to do is as we fill in all of the energy leaks in our body, it is like taking off the veils that cloud our higher self from speaking. And as we start to take the veils off and we start to plug the energy leaks and our internal light body lights up, We make space now for our higher self to communicate. And we make space for that creative right side of us to take a seat at the table, because our left analytical 3D reality world, it stops to be constructed so heavily, and it makes room for the subtler, quieter, more intuitive parts to shine through. And that intuitive part of you is the part that is going to find the creative solutions for those bigger problems. Like, if I'm in a bad marriage and maybe I'm not happy, how do I actually safely get myself out? How do I make the changes? And it's all going to start again with, treat your body well, feed yourself well, sleep well, hydrate well, exercise, move your energy, get your thoughts and emotions back into alignment with who you want to be, knowing that happiness is an inside job, that you're going to start taking responsibility to build this internal light from the inside out, instead of allowing external circumstances to dictate the quality of your life. So all of these ways that you can fill up your energy is ultimately going to lead you to a place where this higher self gives you purpose and alignment. And once you start to live there, just wait and see how much more energized you will be. And once you have all of that vital energy flowing and moving, you will be able to then bring the physical body back into balance with it. Because when the mind speaks, the body listens. And when we make space for our higher self to join the party, we clear our heart space to receive insight and intuition, then the body can finally relax. The body can finally feel safe. The body can finally rest, knowing that the mind is going to intervene on its behalf, that the heart has got a seat at the table now, and our soul is now present and in alignment. And when that happens, the body will recover. So if you're coming here, whether it was a physical condition, whether it is a mental anguish, or whether it's a disalignment, all of these things are going to find resolution and alignment through plugging all the energy leaks. So I hope that gave you lots of ways in which you might be falling out of alignment and how to get back into tune, because your biofield and your energy body, they can adjust and amend quickly. And it is vibration, frequency, and energy. And once you start to speak that same language of coherence and congruency and harmony and rhythm, then all things will fall into place, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself living your best life. So I hope that everybody found something useful today, something actionable to take into the coming days, years, and the rest of your life. And if you found this beneficial, please share it with somebody, like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next topic to explore something else that will be transformative and healing. Have a blessed day and a blessed life. Namaste.
If this resonated, subscribe to Energy Over Matter for more energy medicine, nervous system regulation, and healing. You'll also find guided meditations and full episodes of Mind Over MS. Thanks for being here. Have a blessed day and a blessed life. Namaste.